Welcome. Today I want to talk about writing user requirements. As a software developer, I've always wondered how we can build the right thing, at least maximize our chances for building the right thing. And as I progress in my career, I feel the answer lies in capturing and understanding user requirements. I find that many people confuse user requirements with system specifications. They are different. User requirements express a person's needs, what a particular customer wants. The aim is for us to better understand the need for something. And the natural question that arises from requirements is, what can I build or do to fulfill this need? On the other hand, system specifications talk about what a thing is. For example, this particular thing has certain attributes. It must be blue in color or have these certain dimensions. So here are some examples of a requirement, at least the requirement's title and description, and a specification. It's called a feature because it is valuable to an end user. So this feature is about automating software repository administration. As a software repository administrator, I want to automate its administration. The specification, on the other hand, is, let's say, for a city having a suspension bridge. That suspension bridge will be located at this particular location, having certain number of lanes and with a certain load carrying capacity. It has certain attributes or properties. Why are user requirements useful? I feel they are useful because if properly gathered and properly understood, user requirements inform us, the developer, the software developer, who we are building for, what needs to be delivered, and why our customer needs it. This is extremely useful in my view because it helps us, software developers, stay on track and build the right thing. One way of writing user requirements is by using a company's syntax. That company is Cucumber, and that syntax is Gherkin. Cucumber was founded to promote behavior-driven development, and that's just a fancy way for building something that will behave according to what you, the users, need. Therefore, the Gherkin syntax is a useful way to format user requirements. When you read Gherkin requirements, it reads like a very strange English prose. However, if you do follow this particular way of writing requirements, that structured English way of writing requirements, this can also be used by computer programs, by computer tooling, to automate testing of user requirements for software systems. How do we write user requirements in Gherkin syntax? Well, first and foremost, identify who your user, your customer is. Ask why your customer needs the thing your customer desires. This is very helpful to provide the software engineer or developer with context. Then agree with your customer what exactly it is that needs to be delivered. Proceed to write the feature title and description. So my customer in this case is a software repository administrator. In Zendit, that role is titled Git admin. My customer wants to avoid or at least minimize human error. but also avoid the tedium of manually administering the software repository, in this case a Git repository. Then I finally agree with my customer about what needs to be delivered, and that is a software repository administration automation system. So first, I write the description. As a software repository administrator, that is the customer, I, the customer, want to automate its administration so that I, the customer again, may avoid human error and I am relieved of this tedious task. After writing the description, put on your thinking hat and write an attractive feature title. In this case, I called my feature Automating Software Repository Administration. I prefer to use active language. Other people use passive language like software repository automation or something like that. So, how is it that user requirements help us check and keep us on track that we are building the right thing? This is where part 2 or another feature of Gherkin comes in, scenarios. Usage scenarios, or just simply scenarios, define 3 things. First, what needs to be present before some user action is made. This is known as the preconditions or prerequisites. Then we need to describe the action, what the user, what the customer does when interacting with the software system. Finally, the desired outcomes resulting from that user's action. So one scenario sets up one user acceptance test. Here's a more complete example. I won't go over the feature again. You can read it. Now let's focus on the scenario. I've titled my scenario Adding a New Member to the Software Development Team. I've bolded I've marked in bold, I've highlighted in bold the keywords used in the Gherkin syntax. So given that I'm a technology lead, that's a role in my team, technology lead, and a member, and I say it's a person because it's a human, who has just joined my team. And that member has some way of uniquely identifying the person. Names can be quite ambiguous sometimes. So let's say a driver's license ID or email address. When I ask the system to add member to my team, that's the action, then I should see that member included as part of my team. Now notice that I didn't specify the implementation at all. Asking the system to add member to my team could be a manual process where I interact with the repository's software admin dashboard, for example. But it could also be, let's say, Star Trek style. I point to that user and say, computer, add that person or him to my team. So this is the important part of writing scenarios. We don't really focus on the solutioning. We don't focus on the implementation. What we do focus on is the outcomes, the results of the action. Now, one feature can have more than one usage scenario. Here's a second usage scenario. I want to create a software development team entry within the software repository. So I'm still the technology lead, but now I have a new team which is identified by a unique name. And aside from the name, I also want to have a description. When I ask system to create the team entry, then obviously I should see the new team entry created in the system. But I should also receive an alert and an option to either proceed or cancel if a similar team entry already exists in the system. So let's wrap up. A feature expresses a user's needs, and a feature can have one or more usage scenarios. Scenarios are usage examples, and they are extremely useful because they can be used as user acceptance tests. And I prefer to write requirements in Gherkin syntax. Gherkin is structured English that may be used to capture user requirements. It is English and therefore quite easily understood by non-technical people, but because it's structured in such a way, it can also be understood by software tooling to automate the testing of user requirements for computer programs. If you want the source code for this presentation, it's available at my GitHub repo there, and Zendit is hiring. Thank you.